You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we're talking about the American science fiction horror film The Faculty, directed by Robert Rodriguez, released December 25th, 1998. It was a Christmas release.
Yes. I'm not sure why they did that.
I don't know. There's nothing Christmas about the movie at all, but hey.
No, far from Christmas.
This was the first time I ever watched this movie. I didn't even know this movie existed until like a couple months ago. So
I always love when we get to make you aware of these films and you get to see them for the first time. And then I get to listen to what you really think when we record this podcast. I love it. It's one of the things I look most forward to. So I'm excited to dive into this one.
Yeah.
So we like to do some behind the scenes notes.
Yeah.
So to kind of set the stage for the movie, filming for The Faculty took place in Lockhart, Texas.
Lockhart.
Is that a place you're familiar with, Peg?
I haven't been there, but I know of it. It's in the Austin area. It's like 4.5 hours from here.
Yeah, they actually did a few things in Austin as well, I think.
Yeah.
So it was written by Kevin Williamson, who was very well known for Dawson's Creek, The Vampire Diaries, and The Following, which was a really cool show that starred Kevin Bacon. It was on a while back. He's probably more well known for the Scream movie series, for his involvement with that, as well as I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Ooh, it's been a while since I've watched that one.
I know.
It's a good like late night. I had some good time, like late night horror movie, hanging out with like teenage friends back in the day with that movie. So hey. I can feel it. I feel it.
So this film had a cast of up-and-coming young stars, including Elijah Wood, Josh Hartnett, Usher Raymond, as he was known at the time. It was the film debut of Jordana Brewster and the second film for Josh Hartnett.
I think it was the debut for Usher as well.
I believe it was. You may have more notes on him, but I don't have many in this.
I don't have anything in my notes on him other than Usher. That's it. So,
of course. It was originally titled The Feelers, and the tagline for this film is, 6 students are about to find out their teachers really are from another planet. It had a $15 million budget, and it grossed $63.2 million worldwide. It was 104 minutes. And Pake, why don't you give us one of your cool short synopses?
Okay, we gotta be careful with this one because this one might give a whole lot away. This might be too spoiler filled. It's students suspect that their teachers are aliens after bizarre occurrences.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, I guess.
Wow.
Just threw it all out there. Do we even need to talk about the movie anymore? I think we covered everything.
You've given the whole movie away.
I know, I'm sorry.
This will be the shortest episode of Run for Your Lives at 5 minutes. Thanks, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Bye-bye. No, I'm kidding.
No, we have a lot more to talk about this film.
Yeah, I like that synopsis because honestly, it gave nothing away. It was like, they suspect their teacher's aliens. The end. So that one was really, I like that one as far as just like a very short synopsis.
You always like the short ones.
I do. I don't want you to give me a summary of the movie before I watch it. I just want to know the bare minimum and then jump in and see what happens.
Well, you've given them all the skeleton.
Yeah.
So here we go.
All right, cool. Well, with that, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that. Of course, we like to talk characters first. And so I guess before we get into like specific characters, which this is more of like an ensemble cast versus like main character and some support characters and then like a main like villain kind of, it's all very spread. So I'm sure kind of like Crawl, where it felt like it was like, well, our notes are kind of just jump back and forth because the characters are so tightly combined. It's like that this week, except with like several characters versus even just 2.
Yes.
But yeah, but I have some notes kind of like the before and after of our characters to kind of get their main arcs, and then we can kind of break down more specifics of their stories. So I
Yes.
had my first impressions notes on the characters that I ended up changing throughout the movie because I was like, nope, I was completely wrong about that, and completely wrong because like they paint them in this light at first, and then like you kind of change as you go. So kind of the
Yes.
changed version. So it was like first impressions, but then like I realized like some stuff I was completely wrong about. You'll see what I'm saying because I might pick up on some of those. But like, so we have Casey, who is the nerdy kind of quiet kid who gets picked on, walked all over. Most people don't even realize he's there, but if they do, they're going to give him shit. That's kind of where he is.
Oh, that poor kid. I felt so bad.
Mm-hmm.
We see him banged into a flagpole, and then he's in the bathroom with a bloody nose. You just feel for him because he's the kid who eats alone on the football field, away from everyone else. He just doesn't want anyone to notice he's there because he doesn't want to be picked on.
Yeah.
And you can't blame him.
And then we got introduced to Stokes for short.
Yes.
Who
Stokes.
the goth lesbian, but not lesbian chick who marches to her own beat.
Yes, she does.
Which is funny because Clea Duvall, who plays her, so it's a lesbian actress. We have an LGBT actress playing a character who's pretending to be.
Yes.
So, but it really isn't. It's like, that's interesting.
Yes. Definitely. You know, she spread the rumors about her sexuality to keep other people away. She wanted to push people away. She wanted people, again, very much like Casey, leave me the heck alone. I don't want anyone to bother me. I just want to be left alone. And you get it. It's kind of like this outcast loner vibe that she gives off.
Then next, and I love it because they gave even like the little like blood splatter like splash with like their name. It was really an interesting way to introduce us to everybody, but it's cool because I have it at order.
Yeah, I liked
here
that.
Now. So the next we got Delilah, which I put the popular pretty girl, head cheerleader, and then at first I was like journalism, and then I was like no, but then she's like
she's the editor.
So
she's the editor.
So she's like head cheerleader and working on it. I was like, how does she have the time? I went through high school. I know that would be hard to do. But then at my first impression that I ended up taking, I was like, and she seems really cool. And then I was like, nope, and go back and change that. And I was like, total garbage person, except when she isn't, which is kind of like,
yeah. I have high strung and high maintenance, self-absorbed, dismissive, and as Stan calls her, superficial.
Mm-hmm.
She has no time to listen to her boyfriend, Stan, who we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
And is real quick to tell him what he's good at and what he should stick to without listening to his reasoning or really hearing what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
So I did not like her. I liked her only like for 2 seconds, and then the way she acted.
Yeah. It's like when you first see her, you're like, oh, okay, like she's snobby and high class kind of, but like she's still like a decent person. But then immediately she's like, oh no, just the people she wants to be. And then other than that, not at all.
Well, she's so stuck on the school hierarchy of the head cheerleader dates the captain of the football team, and this is the way that it lines up. And she's more concerned with her appearance than how she treats other people.
Yeah.
And that, it irritated me. It pissed me off.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'll admit it.
And speaking of her captain of the football team boyfriend, that's the next one that we really get is Stan. And on here I have Jock. And then originally I had him, I was like, but not the top dog. Because I don't get that vibe from him. And I didn't even find out he's the captain until he says it during that conversation with her. And I had to go back and be like, oh, he is? Because it seems like he's a nobody. Like he just barely made the team.
Yeah.
It doesn't give off that vibe. Which then you see is like because he wants more out of life and he's kind of been failing and like fading from that part of his life anyway. And so that was interesting. And I don't know if that's like a dig on the movie or not. The fact that like I never picked up on that out of his character at all. They never showed me that side of him. But maybe that's also the point, is by the point that we get to in this movie, in these characters' lives, he's already kind of made that decision that like, you know what? I don't want to be the jock. I don't want to be the sports guy. I think that there's something else in life for me.
Yeah. I kind of like that about him, that he had made a decision that wasn't necessarily the easiest road to take. Because as Delilah pointed out, a football scholarship would have gotten him to college.
Yeah.
But he wants to take a different route there, and I think that's admirable for him to want to do that. Is it crazy? Probably, just because if you have what could be a guaranteed ride to go to school and you want to give it up for academics, I mean, that's a wonderful thing, but are you going to get an academic scholarship? Probably not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
especially after he says, like, I'm a D student and proud of it. And he's like,
yeah,
I earned that D. But I was given an A because I'm the star athlete. And which, again, is kind of admirable that he was like, don't give me what I don't deserve. Let me earn my own, acknowledgments and grades.
Yeah, I liked that he didn't want to stick with the stereotype. He only wanted what he earned, not what someone was going to give him because of who he was. I don't think he liked the preferential treatment that he was getting. Mm-hmm. I think it made him very uncomfortable. And if you saw the way that he acted around other people, he really wasn't one of the what I consider the terrorizers.
Yeah.
Or the bullies. I liked that about him. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot. I did not take a lot of notes on Stan.
No, I think I covered way more than notes that I even had on him just in our conversation right here. So
I know.
that's fine though.
Poor Stan. Didn't stand out enough.
Yeah. Next we have Mary Beth.
Oh goodness, Mary Beth Louise Hutchinson.
Atlanta. And yeah, so I just have new girl, very Southern, sweet, but probably naive. And then had to add to that, in like parentheses, big secret, if you want to call it that.
When I first watched this movie, I had no idea the role she was going to play in it.
I considered it at the point, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but at the point where they're all use like Among Us terms, sus of each other. They're in that like the thing blood sample moment, where they're having to like take the drugs, and they're all okay. Which one of us is the imposter? And Delilah, which is funny because Delilah ends up being the one that they like weed out, but she says something, and I couldn't tell like you're gonna like throw the other person under the bus that way, but then it worked because then. Imposter tactics. There we go. I'm thinking like Among Us.
It's very much Among Us.
Because Delilah even mentions like, but isn't it so convenient that like all of this started happening the second that you moved here? And I was like, yeah, I think it could be her. And then she totally had me fooled with her faking taking the drugs. And then it was like, okay, so it's definitely not her. So by the time it rolled back around to where, it was her, I was shocked. I did not see it coming at all.
Delilah actually made the argument that it could be Mary Beth, but I never considered it really. I never really paid attention to it. Mm-hmm. I just didn't like Delilah. Yeah. She just annoyed me.
Yeah, you just thought it was like her being her typical self. It was just trying to like, but then she was also like infected or whatever at that time too. So that's where I was like, ooh, like Among Us, like imposter, like strategy was like, she knows that Mary Beth is the one, and yet she's going to sit there and give proof as to why she could be.
Yeah.
That way, then whenever people think she's not, like, then it like solidifies, like, Delilah was lying about this and that. It's clever.
The parallels between this movie and Among Us are blowing my mind right now. I did not think of it.
I know. I'm going to probably make plenty more references like that through the notes. And so anybody who hasn't played Among Us, I'm sorry that we're going to nerd out on that a little bit probably, but...
Yeah, we both play every week, and it's a lot of fun. When you get a group of friends together and you all know each other and you're comfortable with each other, it is so much fun to try to figure out who the imposter is. And you know what? This movie was one big game of Among Us.
It was.
I love that. And so please, please, please introduce one of my favorite characters next.
Which is crazy you say your favorite, which I guess... Because I like all the way till like halfway through the movie, I was just like dead set on I'm not going to like this character. I'm going to hate him no matter what. And that is the character of Zeke. Because my initial things on here is like douchebag, drug dealer, total idiot. That's what I had written as my first impressions. And the first two are still true. Douchebag, drug dealer, yes.
Yes.
But then I had to change it. I was like, but kind of smart. And then I had to go back and change again. I was like, no, extremely freaking intelligent, but he's still repeating senior year, which I had a question mark. I was like, why? And then I have to go back and fix it again and be like, oh, because he just doesn't apply himself because he doesn't care about like this like class structure and society and everything that's going on. Like, why do I have to prove how smart I am to pass classes and grades and pay attention? I already know how to make money for myself as a drug dealer and as somebody who can do this and this. I can take care of myself. I don't need this shit. And that's kind of where he's at.
I know. And I kind of liked that he was so dismissive of...
It's just the fact that he parked across like 3 spaces at the very beginning of the movie. I'll never forgive him for that.
That was kind of bad. And I do think part of why he was still in school is because he was making a killing selling scat.
Yeah, if he leaves the high school, then there goes all of his client base.
Profits.
Then the people who were buying his drugs are all gone. So of course he's going to go back.
I know, but he could be, honestly, he's so intelligent. He could be going to school and discovering a cure for something.
Yeah.
So I feel like he needed to apply himself.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't just selling scat.
Oh, no.
Which we learn later is caffeine pills.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it still gets you really high. Like, there were still definitely some chemical components in there that had other, like not hallucinogenic, but, like, mind-altering, effects and stuff to you. But he said it's mostly caffeine.
Yeah. But it was clever, too, though, how he sold it, like, in these empty pens.
Yeah.
Like, they could just, it seemed pretty clever to me. But he also sold bootleg videotapes, condoms, and X-Lax. Mm-hmm. Like, he had a lot of stuff in that trunk that he was selling.
He was ready for any occasion.
Whatever's going to happen, he's ready. And he started off being, like, this rebel. But throughout the movie, you learn that he actually is very intelligent, just in the way that he responds to things in class. Yeah. And then when you see his lab, it's like, oh my good God.
Yeah. This guy's actually like a super genius, and he's just like playing a game on like a way easier level than he should be. He could do better than this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But then I guess my overall on the characters, and then I jumped right to the end of the movie because it's interesting to see now that we've set the stage of like who these characters are and our first impressions is then where they end up. I wanted to kind of talk about that because some of it I'm like not that happy with. The ending is actually one of my like lowest points of this movie for me. And the reason is not really the ending of the movie, but like where they like pick up like, oh, months later. And that's because like, on my first one, I said Zeke joins the football team with a big question mark. Because I was like, where the hell did that come from? That still makes zero sense to me.
Yeah, I didn't understand that at all.
I was like, that's not within his character at all. Even through the arc he's been in, why would he do that? He wouldn't. I don't get it. I was hoping maybe you could explain to me, but I don't know.
Well, you know what? I do wonder if the teacher, Miss Burke, if she finally got through to him that he needed to get his act together and that maybe he thought he could get a football scholarship. I wish I knew the answer to that question.
I know. It was like, why football? Like maybe, again, it's like, it's a small Texas town. I get that. Like, they're in Ohio, but it was filmed in Texas. But it feels that same kind of like Friday Night Lights. I mean, I live here in East Texas. That is so real. I live in a football town. I know exactly what that's about because, and I'll get to some of those notes in a minute, but I guess I'll go ahead and get into them. We'll circle back. Notes. Because, I have some of my like kind of extra stuff. I was just like, this school is throwing everything else aside. The budget has no room for theater, has no room for music, has no room for this, that. The whole school is just so run down. They could use rebuilding so many things, but yet all of the money is going to the high school football. And then I was like,
yes,
that might seem crazy to some people, but I'm like, no.
But it's real.
I was like, for this East Texan, this is all too real. Because, like, I mean, we still had regular theater performances and stuff, but yeah, I mean, so much of the budget for the school and stuff that I went to, everything matters about the football team because that's what people talk about. They're selling tickets to the football game all week long, and that's all everybody wants to talk about. And I mean, I never went. I was not into it. I don't care. But I mean, I guess there's an upside to, the school that I went to is it paid off for some people because I went to high school with Patrick Mahomes, and I walked the halls with Mahomes, and I never talked to him. We never hung out, but I saw him. He was just this like kid that, because I said when I was a senior, he was a freshman or a sophomore, and so we never really crossed paths. But but I knew who he was, and I knew, oh yeah, he's killing it at football. And so to see where he's at now, it's still crazy whenever he's on all the commercials and ads and this, and winning the Super Bowl last year and could do it again this year. Maybe we'll see what happens. If he wins again, then it's weird to like see this, because like everybody's seeing like, oh, the next Tom Brady, and I'm just seeing like, oh, that's that kid that I saw at high school. Like, it's still, I don't see him as like this super uber celebrity, and it's weird. But that's like a whole weird tangent. Anyway,
I like the tangent. I think it's good.
Because I see him, I'm like, oh, Patrick. That's what I see. I still don't see him as like the biggest thing in football right now. It's crazy. So I noticed, but like the one thing that did kind of blow me away then at the end, I was like, what? I was like, this tiny town with the most rundown high school I've ever seen still manages to have a huge pyro budget for their football team.
Of course.
And then I was like, actually, no, I'm not surprised, because if we would have had the area for it, I'm sure they would have signed off to do the same thing here. But yeah, so the football town is for real, because even now, I mean, year round now, there's Patrick Mahomes stuff up in town everywhere. Paintings and murals and stuff on walls and windows of buildings. And we turn into a suburb of Kansas City.
They're proud of their hometown boy.
They are. They're very, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see the community camaraderie come around this guy, because I want to say kid, because that's what I think of him as. I'm still used to seeing like 14, 15-year-old Patrick. But this guy, this young man now, who is like a legitimately genuine guy and a really great person. And so it is cool to see.
Well, where I grew up, we didn't have a football team because our high school only had just over 100 kids in it. So basketball was a really big thing. In our trophy cabinet, we had, I want to say 9 gold balls for basketball for winning the state championship. And they may have added 1 or 2 since then, since I went to school there. But basketball was the thing that brought the whole community together. And it didn't matter if you had a kid that was playing or not. The community rallied together to go to basketball games, to support fundraisers, to do whatever they could to help the community. It was just a really big deal. Parades when they won big games. I remember all of that stuff. So I totally get like the community support. I don't think I ever really felt like our school board kept money from something it needed to go into in favor of a sports team, which was good.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting to, is like, I don't think it was ever that bad to where you'd be like, we're not having a play this year, we're not having this or that because of football. But like the majority of the budget was set aside for the football team.
Well, I think too, some sports don't allow for, like cross-country races, you can't really sell tickets to that. Soccer, not necessarily either, but at least in our community. But, games like football and basketball, you can sell tickets and they actually generate revenue. And so I think investing that revenue back into that sport, if you think about it, it's probably a good thing to do. Like, you have to pay for the maintenance of everything.
Yeah, Friday nights, those bleachers were packed and they were making money selling concessions and those tickets and everything. So, I mean, a lot of it went back into the school for sure.
And now that we've been down a tangent on high school football in Texas and what it's like to go to a small town high school in Maine, we'll get back to our regularly scheduled podcast.
Yeah, where that tangent came from, because I was saying, again, like, I don't understand Zeke going to the football team, other than I was like, maybe in this town is like the only way he's going to get a scholarship anywhere. Because, I mean, he's shown he could easily go somewhere with any kind of like STEM, or is it STEAM now? They've added arts to it or something. I don't know. But yeah, like your science, technology, math, engineering, he would shine in that. But again, this like
Harrington High School.
Write it down, but I think that's what it was. Harrington, Ohio, whatever. Like, is STEM really going to be an option for him? Or is he having to take this like football route? But they never really touched on that, so it's still.
Well, and he's smoking on the field. That would never have been allowed at our school. You'd be kicked off the team for smoking anywhere anyone could see you. You were not allowed to smoke. So it's really interesting that he's doing that right in front of the coach.
Yeah,
And the coach doesn't care.
All he has to say is, like, put that butt out and get back over here so we can keep playing. Like, it's very, like...
Oh, it was nice to see Coach Willis back in his true form.
That psycho needs some anger management. I swear.
Yeah.
He seemed like a nicer guy somehow when he was...
Although his facial expressions and the way he smiled totally freaked me out. It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a fan.
Yeah.
So let's go on and talk about some of the other little things that happened at the end.
Yeah, because we spent a lot of time on Zeke there. So the next one I have is when then we see Stan. So he still quits the football team. Zeke has taken his place, basically. And he's just, he's just going to keep doing what he's doing, which is good. So when we have Stan can do it, Zeke probably could have too. But okay, I'll get off of that. Yeah, we see. So Stan has still quit, but he is with Stokely.
Which I didn't have a problem him being with Stokely.
Yeah. But my problem I had with it is it's a much less goth version of Stokely. Which I'm like, what, this going through this experience and now being able to find love with somebody, now you're going to change your whole style up because goth people and like this emo style is only for the sad loners. And once you actually have somebody in your life that cares about you, you won't do that and you won't have that style and behavior or whatever anymore. I don't like that. But
you have to be who you are no matter what. Yeah. Shouldn't change that.
I think the way she was before was super freaking cool. But
she was really cool. I liked her. I liked that she didn't care. She just didn't want people to bother her. She didn't want people around. And I'm all down with her, being more open. Mm-hmm. But that was quite a makeover.
Yeah. It's like, what? You were hot before. You don't need that.
Yeah, what's going on? Yeah. Yeah, you don't need to change. It was too big of a change. I mean, pastels.
Yeah. Where's she going with this? Yeah. And then the other thing we see at the end, now Casey and Delilah are together. He's famous. He's on the cover of Time magazine, even if the world doesn't believe him for the most part, probably. So he's more like this kind of controversial conspiracy figure, but at least, people are paying attention to him. And so that's something that, he's not used to or whatever. But then I was like, why is he with Delilah? And then I'm like, he's too good for her. Precious Casey is too good for Delilah. She doesn't deserve him.
He was crushing on her before. Like, he really had a big crush on her. But the thing is, Delilah, I don't think, changed.
No.
I think she's still the same person she was before, and she's latched onto him because he's a big deal. Mm-hmm. That's my thought on that.
Yeah. And then one other thing we see, which is actually during the credits. So it's after... we get this little months later thing. Then it's like kind of going through the credits and it's showing like the actors and stuff that played the roles and stuff. So we do get to see, we get a little follow up. Jon Stewart's Mr. Furlong is alive and well. He might be down an eye and a couple of fingers, but he's still around. He's good.
Yes. I liked him in this role. I felt bad that he seemingly died so quickly because I liked him. I mean, he was listening to the kids and talking to them, like explaining things that were going on with that specimen that Casey found on the field. Mm-hmm. I really liked the way he was explaining it to them and was taking them seriously, like, oh, well, let's try this and we're going to put it in the tank. And I liked that. Yeah. He was one of my favorite, I think, teachers.
Yeah, for sure.
In the teacher category, because I think he was the type of teacher I'd want to have if I was in school. Like someone who listened to the students.
Yeah, he seemed like the only teacher that actually wanted to be there at all.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, if you think about it, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because so many of them acted like it was just, well, yeah. I have some quotes to read later.
Yeah.
From a few of the teachers.
All right. Well, cool. Well, that kind of covers, like the broad basis of like first impressions and who they were and where they ended up and kind of how I thought of that. But if we get more specific notes on characters, then I guess if there's anything else on Casey, that's a good place to start. Because he kind of is like the main character, even though it is a lot more of an ensemble. But it's just it's young Elijah Wood. It's good to see.
I know. And there's some things I found out about this film and how it led to something bigger for him that I'm looking forward to sharing later in production notes.
Oh, yeah.
You never know how a little movie, a little role is going to become a stepping stone to something greater in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, you'll just have to wait to find out.
Yeah. The fellowship you keep, right? Wink, wink.
It's the fellowship that you keep.
But yeah, so Casey, you mentioned that he finds this something on the football field.
Specimen. I call it a specimen.
Which he found it right where Coach Willis was taken or approached earlier in the film. So it's like right there in that spot.
Do you have a theory on that? Because I think that it was Mary Beth Louise Hutchinson that approached him on the field.
Yeah, I think so. Because he was very like, because he's thinking it's one of his players. And he was just like, nobody better be bothering me right now. And then he like turned around and was very like, oh yes, what is it? Like, because he's just seeing this quite attractive young blonde.
Yes.
Not the fact that she would be a student, and that's a little creepy, but whatever.
Yeah.
Moving on. She had full nudity in this movie, so she's old enough technically. We'll roll with it.
I know, Laura Harris. She's quite a we'll just leave it at that.
So he takes that, and then you talked about, Mr. Furlong being kind of really the only teacher that takes any kind of initiative or cares, and I don't think that led to the best thing, because I think they were a little nonchalant about the whole, like, it duplicates and it hurts people. I think it's like...
in the teeth!
Yeah. I was like, I don't care if it's a new species. I think you should kill it now. This can't be good.
So Casey and Delilah witness something quite creepy in the teacher's lounge that they're not supposed to be in to begin with. And a lot of Casey's story ties in with Delilah just because he's that photographer for the school newspaper, and he's trying to tell her about the new species that they've discovered, and she doesn't want to hear it. She calls him the geeky Stephen King kid that, there's one in every school. But not all of the, quote, processing, which is what I've chosen to call this whole transferring of the human to alien species, goes well for these teachers, because one of them has a run-in with Stan in the shower. Poor Mrs. Brummel.
Yeah.
She was an older teacher who really looked like she probably should have retired long ago. So they go snooping in the teacher's lounge after Mrs. Brummel has kind of scared the shit out of Stan. And they find Mrs. Brummel's body in the closet.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they witness Miss Olson and Coach Willis turning Nurse Harper into an alien. And that's where we kind of see, it looked like he was biting her ear, not dropping something into it, but I think he was actually dropping something into it. And can we just say Nurse Harper was played by Salma Hayek?
I know, that's so crazy.
They did have, the teachers too were quite an interesting bunch as far as the actors that portrayed them. Coach Willis was played by Robert Patrick. As we've already said, Jon Stewart played Professor Edward Furlong.
Yeah. Lots
of tie-ins to Terminator 2 there. And Bebe Neuwirth played Principal Drake.
It's probably BB, but then you've been watching a lot of Schitt's Creek, and so you want to say it like Moira.
I've been watching a lot of Schitt's Creek. You know what?
Bebe.
Yes, Pake, thanks for the correction. It's Bebe Neuwirth.
Too much Moira brain.
She played Lilith on Frasier. And she played the principal. So, they had a decent cast for that as well.
Yeah.
But it all starts to break down for Delilah and Casey when they pop out of the closet. But yet, at that point, so many of the teachers had already been turned that I think they figured out maybe they were in trouble. I'm not sure, but Casey comes back to the school after with the police to try to find Mrs. Brummel's body, but it's been moved, and a resuscitating Annie is in its place.
Yeah. Yeah. All of these, like, alien teachers now, they're able to work together and make this kid look crazy. And
yes. And start taking over the police force. And then poor little Casey is just like, okay, we're going home. And then Principal Drake wants to take his mom into the office to have a discussion. And Casey's like, no, Mom, I did it. I'll see the shrink. Let's go.
Yeah.
Because he was trying to protect his mom.
I was going to say, he straight up saved her life right there in that moment. I was like, unless they already end up getting her. Because then I was like, the more I think about it, his parents seemed pretty alien there at like the end of when we see them. And I was like, I think they got them anyway. I don't think...
Yeah. Me too. And they take poor Casey home and drag all of his stuff out of his room. No internet, no telephone, no music. Mm-hmm. That sounds terrible. Yeah. I don't want, at that time of my life, no music. That would have probably broken me.
And I think that's another thing I think that they actually were turned at that point already. Is because they're trying to connect, like, just break him, basically, and make him think that, oh, you are being punished because you've done a bad thing, and trying to, like, pound it into his head that, like, questioning your teachers and questioning this alien thing, you have done wrong, you've done bad, and, like, also, you know, taking away his connection to the outside world with the internet and stuff, and the internet and the phone. But then the other thing that really makes me think is then his mom and her, because I guess when you're taken over by the alien, you still hold on to like memories and thoughts and knowledge of the person that they've overtaken. So the things that they know, there you know, because then I have in here, I was like, bad parenting for not listening and then taking everything away when he wants to call Delilah, although having her photos up on your wall is a little creepy.
Yes, just a bit.
But then I have here, surprisingly progressive parenting moment, though, when his mom knows that he has porn stashed under his bed and seems to be totally okay with it and is only taking it away now as a punishment.
And his dad apologizes, and it's so funny, the expression on his face, like,
and so at first it was almost like progressive parenting.
Yeah, way to go, son, you've got this, but I'm sorry I have to take it away from you. I was kind of like, the dad was, I think he was actually pleased that his son was digging that out. Yeah. You know, like,
so my initial notes, what my notes say is this like progressive parenting moment? But now that we're talking about it, thinking about it, I was like, or it could be like another kind of like signal that maybe they were turned alien or whatever, because they're acting a little strange by like being okay with their high school son having a whole stash of porn in his bed. So I don't know.
I don't know many parents that would be okay with it, although this movie was made 22 years ago, almost 23. Mm-hmm. So maybe things have changed since then. I don't know.
Casey has, and I'm jumping through because I have, my notes are very sparse. So fill in whatever you have, because then I'm jumping off ahead a lot.
Absolutely, of course.
But
of course.
But I have here that Casey kind of throws out a theory of why the invasion would start here in small town Ohio, and it actually makes a lot of sense. And I do that. I was like, starting the takeover small and discreet versus somewhere really big and highly noticeable. Like, that totally does make sense.
Yeah, because Casey had that one quote that he said, if you were going to take over the world, would you blow up the White House Independence Day style or sneak in through the back door? And I think, you know, it works, because you remember one of the teachers gave them a test telling them to write down all of their family members, immediate family, and then all of their family members out around and where they lived.
Mm-hmm. Branching out the takeover. Yeah.
Yep. One person at a time. Like at the football game when they were, you know, turning all of those, or infecting, processing all of the football players from the neighboring team.
Yeah, they'd tackle them, and then while they're down, it's clever. Yep. Yeah. It's a nice touch. But yeah. Anything else you have on Casey? Because the next thing and last thing I have is like way at the end. So
you know, he was one of the last. Yeah, most of what I have is at the end, so I think he did have a couple of heroic moments, like, and good conversations. Like, he and Stokely had discussions in the library talking about aliens and invasion of the body snatchers and pod people and all of those things, which I thought was cool. He also provides a distraction to get the infected students away from Zeke while Zeke is trying to get to his car.
Yeah, it comes back when Coach Willis mentions to him, like, oh, when you do run, like, you were fast, you were speedy.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I felt that was a foreshadowing of like, oh, he's going to have a moment where he's going to need to run and he's going to be able to do it.
And he did.
Yeah.
Very, very well.
So yeah, so the last note that I have on him, is just whenever he finally, which I don't even want to call it Mary Beth because it's not Mary Beth at that point. Just the alien is what I have in here is like the
queen.
The queen alien is like, it was really good thinking on his part. I said trapping it in like the retracting bleachers.
That was so smart.
Getting it kind of trapped in there and then managing to kill it, stab it in the eye with the scat, with the drugs. Right. Not even just like before it like infected him, but as it was infecting him to where, like it was last second.
I know, he and Zeke were the only ones left. And of course, Zeke had been knocked out unconscious in the locker room at the time. So really, Casey was the last one standing to be able to try to fight the queen. Yeah. I mean, she had lots of things that she said to him. How much better things were going to be if he just joined her. But he was a hero. He was a true hero. And we see him at the beginning as this bullied kid to where he comes at the end and he really is the hero of the story. Yeah. And I was really proud of him at that moment. Now, if he'll just dump Delilah and move on to someone better, that would be great.
Right. Somebody who deserves him. He's precious.
Yes. Oh, goodness. I love ties to that. That's just great.
I didn't even do that one on purpose.
Yeah, I know, but it was great. I love it.
I didn't even think of it until you said it. I love that. All right.
So I feel like we need to talk a little bit more about Zeke after we stop laughing about this.
All right. So like I said, my first impression of Zeke was that he was just a total idiot. Yeah. And then immediately, though, in like one of like the next scenes is we get him having this full analysis on the feelings of loneliness of Crusoe and how introspective that whole like thing was. And I'm just like, I don't know what to think about this guy.
He's smart when he wants to apply himself, but he really could give a damn. I'm not sure. But he was a badass too. Like, he's the one who's ripping the slicer off the paper cutter to attack Professor Furlong when he's going to kill Casey, and that's also when they figure out that whatever is in Scat can be a useful weapon against the aliens. Because I thought Professor Furlong was dead.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice little like random sting mid credits to be like, oh, he's back, by the way, struggling to eat a donut because he has no fingers, but he's here. Yeah. But yeah, so the fact that, you think that like it kills the aliens, at least like the parasites, it does kill. So luckily the host still survived, it seemed, even if he lost an eye. But I was like, so that must be why those other students that he had been selling to were so keen on taking all of his supply. I'm like, do you have more? Is it in your car? Is it in your locker? Is it here? Is it there? I guess the aliens like somehow figured out that this stuff would kill them and they were trying to confiscate as much of it as they could and keep it out of his hands. Yeah.
That's what that was about. They'd already been taken over at that point.
Yeah. Because you see, like a lot of these, like the aliens kind of pick up on a lot of that stuff. It's the water that keeps them alive and hydrated. Just there's so many little things like throughout the movie. Like you see, it goes from like a guy wheeling like a cart of water bottles down the hallway to like the next time you go to the school, there's a whole truck of like water bottles that are coming in, and then they've replaced everything. Even in the background, everybody who's like students and teachers are all walking around carrying these same water bottles.
I know, it's like a water bottle.
I thought that was a really cool touch. Yeah. But yeah, super genius Zeke. It was kind of my like note is like, oh, he's not stupid at all. No, because he puts everything together.
He's created like this facade that everyone just thinks he's a rebellious stoner, when really he's super intelligent. And he created the thing that won the alien war. Yeah. So he should be able to go to whatever college he wants.
Right. It's like, I ended the invasion. Well, Casey did it, but I created the drug that he ended it with. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think Zeke doesn't get enough credit in that.
And so, yeah, he puts everything together of, so I have it just written down. So, to recap it, if people haven't, that it's an alien parasite that can duplicate, but it's all based off of one main queen, as they refer to it. But it needs a living organism based on water to take over in order to survive, which is, of course, the humans. That's going to be the best way to go.
Human bodies are the perfect vessel.
And so, of course, a diuretic, like Zeke's caffeine-based drug, is what's going to dry them out and kill them. And so I did even notice, like in the teacher's lounge, they focused a little bit on the coffee machine set being completely empty and unused, while it's, and then everything's being stocked with all these water bottles. Like, well, yeah, because coffee is a known diuretic as well, caffeine. Like, that's
yes, exactly. And when people were taken over, processed, infected, you would notice that there were differences between the way they were before and the way they were after. Like subtle hair changes or clothing changes. One of the most interesting, I think, ways of showing the big changes, we see these two, they're a couple, and they're actually credited on IMDb as the fuck you girl and the fuck you boy, because that's all they say in the entire movie. They keep yelling it back and forth at each other. And the girl's actually played by Summer Phoenix, and she is the youngest sister of Joaquin Phoenix.
Nice.
And the boy is played by someone I'd never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really write his name down.
Speaking of younger sisters, I don't know if this is in your production notes because I didn't look over it, but when Mary Beth gets to the school and is asking some like goth chick directions to the office, the girl that has the nose ring attached to her earring and stuff, do you know who that was? I think her name is...
That was Robert
Tina
Rodriguez's
I think
little sister.
Yeah.
Tina, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of connections in this movie. But with this couple, you notice at the beginning they were screaming at each other. Yeah. They were screaming "fuck you" at each other over and over again.
Easy dialogue to memorize for a movie. Easy script.
Yeah, super easy. And kick each other and slap each other. And you notice at the beginning that's how they are. And then partway through, she's yelling at him. He has this vacant look on his face because he drank the Kool-Aid. And she's like slapping him and yelling at him, and he's not doing anything. And then later on, they're all cuddly and happy together.
Yeah.
Which is very boring. It's much more exciting to watch them fighting.
Yep.
But that's just me. So, and we also learned, too, that they were inserted through the ear.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know that at first, but then figure it out.
Yeah, you were going to mention something else about Zeke when I cut you off so rudely.
Oh, yeah. I want to talk about Zeke's relationship with Miss Burke.
Okay.
Because I still think maybe she's the reason he's playing football. I don't know. But she's trying to stop him from selling things in the parking lot. And then she gets taken over. And then when we see her in the parking lot again later, she's all seductive until she climbs in his car and tries to kill him. And then she gets ejected through his car window and her head sliced off. And we see some of the worst CGI that I've seen in a movie in a while.
Yeah, it wasn't that great.
Not good. Not good CGI.
Those are some not great effect moments. That one, and then even like Mr. Furlong's like fingers crawling around on the floor. Those were not the best.
Yeah, not good.
Detached body parts weren't their effects. The animation strong suit. But I do love that the decapitated head walking around on tentacles instead of like little legs was quite a fun little nod to John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yes, it was.
Which is not the only nod to that movie in this movie, by the way.
No, there are a few. Are you going to bring those up?
I can, or if you want to throw those in production notes, because I know you have at least one of them.
I do. I have a few. Okay. So I think we've discussed Zeke quite a bit.
Yeah.
The last thing that he did do was, and I felt so bad when he killed his pet rat, trying to decipher or learn more about the organism or alien. But I liked that he decided that the best way to figure out who was human and who wasn't was to make them all inhale scat, which is when, of course, we've already talked about Delilah had inhaled it, and we learned that she had already been infected.
Yep, as I have in my notes. Of course, Delilah was the imposter, but they couldn't eject her, so she escaped.
Among Us for the win. Oh my goodness. You know, I don't have a lot of notes on the rest, except I do have some notes on Mary Beth.
Okay.
That I think we haven't talked about.
Let's see what I have on some of the ones before we get to that, because that's kind of a turn in character.
Yes.
So I do have some on Stokely, which they're more just kind of lightly based, but
we already know you don't think she should have changed a single thing.
Yeah,
Is there more than that?
No, Stokely adjacent here. I say this movie is very also, not just the Thing, but very influenced by Invasion of the Body Snatchers and the Puppet Masters.
Yes.
And of course that's pretty clear because, they pay clear homage to that by having Stokely come right out and say that and mentioning these films and books by name.
Yes.
And details about them and really kind of like connecting them to this story. And so I thought that was really cool because it's a good way to pay homage to be like, yeah, we totally ripped off these ideas for this, to where even in like the dialogue, she's like, it's like, well, she's like, but that was also a ripoff of this story. And that was, so.
Yes.
So she's saying that, yeah, you borrow kind of these different things to tell these stories, which is exactly what this movie is doing, which I think is really fun. And then she has kind of the theory, she deducts that in theory, since it's a single parasite that's duplicating, that finding and killing the original would kill all the duplicates. And then it's quite a gamble to take that. Like, and then I think all the people would just turn back to humans, I think would be okay. Like, she took that in theory gamble pretty strong, but it paid off.
Yeah, she did. I wasn't sure about that. I wasn't sure how that was going to turn out for her. Not the first time I saw it. In rewatching it, it's like, Stokely, you're a lot smarter than I thought you were, because I forgot about that. Yeah. I forgot you were the one that was kind of putting the pieces together.
Yeah, she's the sci-fi nerd. She's the one that they turn to once they're like, okay, so we've come to the realization, we agree it's aliens.
Yes.
Okay, now let's turn to our sci-fi alien story expert, Stokely. What you got?
Very much like you turned to me for the production notes.
And then very much like The Thing or Among Us, then yes, of course, our group then has to start becoming sus of each other. And
yes.
becomes a storyline for a little bit there.
Yes, and Pake and I do get sus of each other. He gets sus of me quicker than I get sus of him, though. Have to say that.
And then, I'm trying to think if I have anything else with Stan. The scene of Casey and Stan bonding and giggling along with each other about Delilah's bitchiness while they were high was a really great moment for me. I love that.
That was so much fun. Oh my gosh. It really was.
And then, of course, when Stan goes out on his own to go make sure that they killed the right person after they killed Principal Drake, and he encounters the coach and the entire football team out there just aliens sucking up the rain. And I was like, well, Stan is fucked. And then when he comes back and he's acting like he's running away from them, I didn't buy it for a second. Although...
No, me neither.
It was convincing enough for them to like slip him some scat and be like, okay, we'll prove it. And then I love that moment where he just pours it out. Like, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to take it. You guys called my bluff and sorry. And then he gives this really interesting
and now I've used it up.
Unnerving speech about like, but it's better and you'll be better and there's no pain and no fear. And
yes.
Same speech that Mary Beth kind of gives a little bit later, but
yeah.
But it was a little unnerving. I liked it.
Mary Beth was kind of crushing on Zeke too.
Mm-hmm.
I think she warmed up to the 5. I call them the 5 because to me, that's what they were.
Yeah.
I feel like she had a crush on him and she kind of warmed up to the 5 because she explained that she was coming from a planet that was dying. And so she struck off on herself, by herself. She struck off by herself. And she grows to care for the 5 because she looks at them as being as lost and lonely as she is.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood that. Like, I felt, okay. I think the reason she didn't take them over quicker is because she started to really like them.
Yeah.
She enjoyed her time with them.
Yeah.
But I think she still planned to infect them.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was still the end goal.
But I liked the character of Mary Beth herself. And like I said earlier, while we recorded, it was like, I was very shocked to find out that it was her. I didn't see it coming. It was a good twist. Because before that, in my notes, I was just like, she is very sweet and I like her a lot. Fuck off, Delilah. Stop trying to feed her all this information about this person's a loser and this person's a loser. It was like, let her be the sweet, innocent, friendly person that she is. And then, so I thought it was a really sweet moment, which then turns out to be a little bit more foreshadowing, as I love when she's sitting at the table with Stokely and she's asking what she's reading and she shows her and she kind of lights up a little bit. She's like, oh, that author in this story, which I don't remember what it was. I didn't write it down, unfortunately. But she knows what it is. She's like, oh, that sci-fi. You like that sci-fi stuff about alternate dimensions and aliens. And what do you think about aliens and all this? And then now knowing what she was or whatever, it's really kind of this funny thing that she like perks up and takes such an interest in, alien stories. Whoa, you know?
Yeah. I like that too. I like that tie-in. It also gave us, the moment of Delilah really bullying. I feel like that was the big bullying moment for Delilah, for us to see her being rotten.
Yeah.
Because the way she treats Stokely in that scene is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It was really hard to like her after like the first 2 minutes of the movie. You just couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
She's just not redeemable to me.
Yeah.
Not a nice person.
But yeah, and of course there is the big then reveal and transition. Mary Beth was the queen and she takes over and becomes this terrifying giant CGI alien. But then I was like, but she took the drug. And I was just like, this better be explained, which it was pretty quickly after I wrote that down. So that was good. Although who would have noticed this tentacle arm thing, like undoing the pin?
No,
I don't know about that.
No.
But then it made some other things like make a little more sense. I was like, because she wasted all of it, like when they thought they got, in Principal Drake, when they thought she was the queen, and Mary Beth is sitting there dumping the whole container out on her at Overkill. I was like, you're wasting all of it. And it's like, oh, she did that on purpose. Like,
duh, she did it on purpose.
So it doesn't get used on her.
She's the queen.
Yeah, but then I was like, well, she could have turned Zeke way earlier when they're making out with each other in like the science equipment closet. Why didn't she? And then, like you said, maybe she liked him and wanted to. I like you. I'm gonna keep you around a little bit longer. It's kind of that dark little thing. It was like, I've seen. Yeah, it's like, I like you. I'll kill you last.
Yes.
So yeah, and then I was like, or Stokely, when after the boys all left the gym and it was just the two of them, why did she have to do this big reveal? It was like she could have just turned Stokely, and then when the boys came back, they could have more covertly taken over. But she had to be dramatic. I don't.
She was very dramatic. She came across as this very sweet person, but she had to be very dramatic when she finally revealed that she was the alien. But then she also switched it back and was completely nude. Mm-hmm. And talking to people. So it's, I don't know. And the CGI, okay. So the alien, when they were in the gym, when she's first transforming, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
I feel like it might have been more practical effect. Mm-hmm. When she's moving around or she's underwater chasing Stokely, no.
Yeah.
Not good.
Not as good. Although her diving into the pool and then swimming through the pool as they're running alongside it, that I liked.
Was cool.
I thought that was a really cool effect.
Yeah. It wasn't too close up.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was bad when she was running under the bleachers. I feel like when she was in the gym, it was okay.
Yeah.
When she's underwater, it's okay. Mm-hmm. But nowhere else.
And then, there's
it's just not good.
The scene where she's kind of hunting down Casey. And so she's walking through the locker room. And she's back in her human form, just this naked body walking through the locker room. But then you're seeing the shadows of all the tentacles and everything still all around the place and all over the walls. And it didn't make much sense, but I thought it was a cool visual.
It was a very cool visual. I didn't understand why they did it that way, but I appreciated it a lot. It looked good.
So I don't really have anything else about her though. Yes, you do. But then I have other aliens. I have a lot of notes, which we've probably covered some, but I will go through and see. And that's really just the other teachers and stuff that had been turned throughout. I noticed, because at first I thought it was going to be a little turn of it's bringing out their deepest desires or something. But I think, again, like I mentioned, it's just that they still have the memories and thoughts of the people that they take over. Let's see. Willis early on in the movie used the word human a lot. Like he was overcompensating for something, being the lack of being human.
Very much. Very much. Scary.
So the last one that I had, I said, principal is sus. You said capital S. I remember that. So based off of the next note that I have from there. So we see the faculty is calling all of the students into office, and it seems by the order of how popular or influential they are, so they can spread that way, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And then let's see, we talked about Furlong and Zeke taking the blade and cutting him. And even though the fingers crawling around weren't super great, I actually really did like the effect of, instead of blood coming from his fingers, it's the tendrils.
Tentacle. Yes, those little lines. To me, they look like electrodes, some weird electric wire thing. I don't know. That's what it looked like to me. I liked it too.
It's cool. And the fact that he like corners them and decides he has to take them out or turn them now because they were onto him, even though Casey was still really the only one who was. Casey and Delilah and the others were just like making fun of Casey for thinking he's an alien. And he's like, you guys think I'm an alien? He's like, yeah, Casey does. He's like,
yes.
Well, shit, now I gotta kill you. I guess this
Not good. Not what you want. It was cool to see, too, the changes in each of the teachers once they were taken over. There was the one teacher, and I didn't write down his name, but he was the one that was drinking in class, looked a little disheveled.
I don't have it written down either, but if memory serves me right, I think they said Mr. Tate.
Yes, it is Mr. Tate.
Okay.
Mr. Tate, yeah, he was drunk, and so we see him give up his alcohol, and he's drinking water, and everyone's drinking the water. Yeah. There isn't even any Kool-Aid in it, and they're drinking it, so, yeah, hydration is super important.
And, yeah, I think that's all other character notes, because I had a few others that we've mentioned. And then random notes, I talked most about the football experience and stuff like that. So then the only other thing in my random notes that I have is like the music itself.
I knew you would.
The soundtrack. I was like, hey, we're starting off with the Offspring. I'm on board. I love the Offspring.
Yes.
They're one of not one of my favorite bands, but I do really enjoy them.
Yeah.
And they're fun live. I'll tell you that.
Of course,
I've seen them. Yes. Yeah. So that was, I like that song a lot. And so that was a great way to start it. But then it was, then the 90s really started to shine through in this soundtrack. And even, like, especially the moment where, like, The Faculty, like, the title of the movie comes up in red, and you're hearing, like, this, like, like, kind of just music coming in. I was like, it reminded me of, like, those, like, bad, like, sci-fi channel, like, series kind of things where, like, you'd come in and be like, the music's supposed to make you be on edge because it's some 90s grunge, rip-off cover band. Like, it's just,
Yeah, I think so.
We're trying to set a mood where it's kind of cool and edgy, but also really, like, making you think, and it's kind of emotional. it's music
90s.
Wasn't doing it for me all of the movie. I think it was great starting with The Offspring, and then it got kind of like, oh god, this is the most 90s soundtrack I've ever heard.
It's not a soundtrack that Peg's gonna buy on vinyl.
And there's nothing wrong with 90s music. I like a lot of great 90s, especially like 90s like grunge and like pop punk stuff, whether you're talking Nirvana or you're talking Lit and Collective Soul and stuff. I love all of that, but I don't know, it doesn't fit every mood and moment when you're watching a movie like this.
It dates the movie. Just say it dates the
definitely
movie. Yeah, it totally dates it. We get it.
Yep. But yeah, I think that's all of my notes. Did you have anything else?
Oh, well, we have been through most of my notes. We've been through all my stuff about the alien that I had. We have been through my effects complaints, which I very seldom have complaints, but this movie, I have complaints, and I've already given them, so I feel like I don't need to revisit those. So I feel like we've gotten through everything.
All right.
Yeah. We're at that point where I would talk about production notes. So maybe I should just do that now. Yeah. So the original story and script was written by David Wechter and Bruce Kimmel in 1990, but it was not purchased until after the success of Scream. And that's when Miramax decided to buy the script to make the movie. Williamson did the rewrites, and while he kept the basic story, he added some characters and wrote the dialogue a little bit differently because he wanted to spice things up. Make it more hip, I believe, is what he wanted to do. Although he planned to direct the film, he chose not to so that he could focus on directing one of his other writing projects, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, which is another movie that came out around the same time There were a few of them that all seemed similar vibes. Not the alien vibe, but just the general teen angst vibe. So the special effects were by XFX and the K&B Effects Group, which is owned by Greg Nicotero from, everyone knows, from The Walking Dead. But he wasn't involved in the effects in this one at all. In addition to using the Texas School for the Deaf in Austin, Texas, they also used the high school in Lockhart, Texas. In fact, they used the whole football team, and they told citizens and residents of Lockhart to show up for the football game and gave them all fake t-shirts to wear in the stands. And the band at the football game is from Austin High School.
Nice.
So the drug test scene, which we talked about, when Zeke had everyone try to sniff and snort scat, was another homage to The Thing when they did the blood test. There were a few actors or actresses that turned down roles. The role of Principal Valerie Drake was offered to Gillian Anderson, and she turned it down. And, of course, she's from The X-Files. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer stars Sarah Michelle Gellar and Charisma Carpenter both turned down roles in the film. And Jessica Alba auditioned for the role of Delilah. Of course, that went to Jordana Brewster. And the coolest thing, probably, the coolest bit of trivia is it was during the filming of this movie that Elijah Wood heard about and was encouraged to audition for a little known in the works movie trilogy called Lord of the Rings.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember reading something about that because, he was encouraged to, and he was like, I don't know. He had never read the books. He didn't know anything about, he wasn't very versed in what Lord of the Rings was, but he was encouraged to audition. And it was even said that they were only casting British actors, and he decided to send in an audition anyway and managed to nail it. So that's good.
Can you imagine anyone else as Frodo? Because I don't know that I can. I feel like he was Frodo, is Frodo. Like that was. Oh yeah. Elijah Wood is Frodo. And that's all I have for production notes.
All right. Awesome. Then I guess it's time to get into quotes. We have some fun quotes.
Yes, I think I do.
All right.
I've used one or two already. So at the start of the film, when Principal Drake explains to the teachers that they can't have new computer equipment, a field trip to New York, or musicals this year, Mr. Tate says, "But I bet the football team gets their new jerseys and their new equipment." Big surprise. And so Principal Drake has a little monologue that I found really fitting and something to relate to. And she says, "Have you seen the football stadium on a Friday night, Mr. Tate? The entire town is there. This is a football town, let me remind you. And yes, the team will get new jerseys and new knee pads and new jock straps and anything else they want in the name of education, because that is what the school board wants, because that is what the parents in this town want. I'm sorry, my frustrated hands are tied." So even if she didn't agree with it, I feel like she didn't agree with it with her saying it this way. There's nothing she can do. And I think that's what the point she was trying to get across. Then later in the film, Professor Furlong is trying to talk to Nurse Harper, and Nurse Harper has a cold. Professor Furlong tells her, "Maybe you should just go home." And Nurse Harper says, "No, thank you. I'm saving my sick days for when I feel better." I feel like most people in the working world could relate to that. You don't want to use your sick day or your time off for being sick. You want to use it for something fun. That's how I am anyway. I always want to use it for something fun. Vacation, trip, something. And when Coach Willis finds Casey on the football field, he says, "You're not that much into sports." And Casey said, "I don't think that a person should run unless he's being chased." And Coach Willis says, "Being chased." I like that. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yes.
And those are what I have for quotes. I'm sure that you have some nuggets for us.
Oh, yeah. I like some interesting stuff. Of course, my first one is that last quote of yours, crossover there at the end. about Casey's I don't think a person should run unless he's being chased. I follow that life philosophy too, Casey. Don't worry. I have one that just because the absurdity, a little bit of it, of just like I mentioned, Coach Willis having that overcompensation with his choice of words a little bit earlier in the film, is after Stan decides to confront the coach and tell him he's quitting the team, and they have their little back and forth, and then Stan says, "Thanks for not reaming me, Coach," and Willis says, "What kind of human being would I be if I did that?" And then gives him this weird smile. And
we already know that he's not a human being. We already know this.
Yeah. Let's see. This one might be my favorite. And I have when Zeke and Mary Beth go into the equipment room, the scientific equipment room, and Zeke says, "This is where I get my equipment." Mary Beth says, "You borrow it from science labs?" And Zeke says, "I like to think of it as stealing, actually."
I love that. That was so much
such
fun.
A turn on the phrase that you're used to hearing in movies and stuff. Like,
the flip of that, borrowing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that. And then the last one, I don't know why this line is so funny to me, but I cracked up so hard and I love it. And it's just out of nowhere. It shouldn't be this funny, but it was. And it's where they're doing like the drug test where they all have to take the drug to prove that they're not aliens. And Zeke uncaps the first one and says, "Casey?" And Casey goes, "Why me first?" And he goes, "It's your birthright, man. Just fucking take it." And I don't know why I laughed so hard at that. It was just this line.
Oh,
like what do you want me to say? Just I picked you first. Like, like I don't need a reason. But
just take it.
Yeah.
It's almost like I know it's not you. Just take it and get it over with so we can move on to someone else who it could be.
Yeah.
Because I wonder, an alien Casey, I just think, I don't know. I think we'd know.
Yeah.
I think we would know if he were an alien. Because he's so meek and mild that I just think it would be really easy to notice a difference.
Yeah. But all right. Yeah, that's all that I have. You can always see there's a point in the movie where like the tension and the plot and everything gets really strong to where I stop paying attention to quotes and I get into the movie. So that was about that point, is like the climax of like, oh, now the aliens are on the loose and they don't know. That's when I stopped paying attention to quotes and was more into the plot and what was going on.
I can see that. I think that was totally fine. I think we pointed out some of the funnier quotes in the movie. And you know what? Our listeners will figure out after watching the film what their favorite funny quotes were, because I feel like there were a lot of fun ones.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, then I guess that brings us to rankings.
Oh, yes, it does.
So, yeah. Well, you got to go first. That's just how it goes.
I don't know. I don't think I should this time. I feel like you should because you've never seen it before.
Oh, you're going to try to turn it on me, huh?
I am. I think I succeeded, right?
Fine. I won't put up a fight.
Victory is mine.
So, as much as I still did really enjoy this movie, and I've really enjoyed talking about it, this might be a rare occasion, though, because a lot of times I'll be like, I had this, movie, whatever. And then as we discuss it, I add some more points to my ranking and I kind of go.
I don't think you did this time.
I think this was one of the rare occurrences, even though I enjoyed our discussion and I still really liked the movie, talking about it actually made me dock more points as we went. Because realizing like some of like the plot things, like why would this character still do that? And some of the effects and CGI.
No.
And I just say dock some points, like literally like 0.2 points.
All right.
So not down a whole lot. But yeah, I think I'm landing on a 7.6 on this one.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That is higher than I thought you would be.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, like I still liked it. I still thought it was a fun movie. I still really enjoyed it.
But it's not your favorite, of course. All right. Well, I loved this movie more the first time I saw it. Rewatching it and watching it through a different lens, there were things that I saw that I thought dated, which kind of took away from it a little bit, the excitement that I felt when I first saw it. So, given all of that, I gave it a 7.3.
All right.
So, you were higher than me, and I'm certainly shocked because I had the feeling you were going to go lower than me this time. I actually thought you'd be in the 6s.
It takes a lot for me to drop to like the 6 point. Because unlike this school in this movie where they're giving D's, I never grew up with that. 69 is failing where I'm from. So
yeah, me too.
So to drop into the 6-point range, I feel like that's a failure of a movie in a ranking. So I feel like if I enjoyed the movie, it's going to be in the 7 range for me. Just as where my brain is wired to.
All right. So we're grading schoolwork.
Kind of. Yeah. All right. It's time to get into some feedback for this week. And we've got a little bit. I'm happy we've got quite a little few. We've got 3 voicemails to get to, and that's exciting. We've got people calling in. Always love that.
I know. I love it. I love when we get that much feedback. It's always good to hear what people are thinking. And, I never know which movies are going to be the ones that people are going to respond to.
Yeah.
So this is one that people had a lot of feels about. So
love it.
I'm excited.
Before we get into those voicemails, of course, we do have one email as well to read off. And that comes from our good friend Alex.
I'll take that one. It says, "Hey, Pake and Daphne, just wanted to leave feedback for the faculty. I love how many people that have become famous that were in the movie. Elijah Wood has managed to play some of the same characters his whole life. I had forgotten the twist at the end, which was a fun surprise, and I loved how they killed the queen with the bleachers. Like they ever moved that quickly. But it's a movie. Can't wait to hear your thoughts."
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, those bleachers were retracting quite fast.
Yeah, I don't ever remember them retracting that fast before. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
They were set to alien speed. They were alien killing speed. Didn't you?
Who knew?
If you go back there on most gyms, there's like a little switch that you can, slow, fast, alien killing. That's...
So, our first audio message, I know it's a surprise, but it's from our good friend Steve.
What? Steve sent a voicemail?
Steve sent a voicemail, believe it or not.
"Hey, Daphne and Pake and Daphne. I don't remember where I went last time. This is Steve. I'm fixing to watch The Faculty. I just watched it like a few weeks ago, so I'm excited to watch it again. And, man, such a good movie. So I'm going to give you my thoughts as we go along. Hopefully I won't go too long. All right. Scream had started... Hold on. Let me pause this. Scream had started this whole genre of the slasher movie not taking itself too seriously. And I think that's where The Faculty, where it comes in. It's a couple years after Scream, but very similar to, is that it still had that tension because you still had a slasher movie, but it also didn't take itself too seriously. And, Frodo, before he was Frodo, is a bonus. I don't believe you should run unless you're being chased or out of ammo either. Yeah, Robert Patrick, you're not going to stand in the way of the human condition. I can't believe I just figured this out. It's the Breakfast Club. The jock, the stoner, the nerd, the outcast. Who am I missing? Oh, and the pretty girl, Molly Ringwald. Poor Jon Stewart, man. He just gets abused. Whoa. Delilah was one of them. I don't know why. Every time I watch this movie, I'm still surprised. Every time. Literally. Dang, Frodo running for his life. Get it? Why are you naked, Mary Beth? Nice. So Frodo got the girl. All right. Talk to y'all later.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Always love your running commentary. It is always amazing. Very much appreciated.
It's always fun. You just never know what Steve's going to say, so it's always a big surprise. And like we've said before, Pake and I don't listen to these ahead of time, so you're getting our first original reaction when we hear them for the first time.
That's great. And then we have a next one here from our good friend Wendy. Let's see what she said.
Here we go.
"Hi, Pake and Daphne. It's Wendy. I forgot just how enjoyable The Faculty is. It has a ton of young stars in it. It has themes inspired by every horror and teen film out there. It's Breakfast Club meets The Blob. It's a super fun movie that still keeps you on your toes the whole time. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to hear the feedback that you guys put in. Thanks."
Awesome.
Wow, thanks, Wendy.
I like that blurb. Breakfast Club meets The Blob. That's 2 for 2 on Breakfast Club relations with this movie on calls now. So
I know. I'm excited to hear. We have one more voicemail
last
from
call.
our friend Mark.
Mark, let's see before we get into this. Are you gonna say it's like the Breakfast Club? Because I kind of hope you do. We need a 3 for 3 perfect score.
Hey, Daphne. Hey, Pake. I just wanted to leave you a little bit of feedback about The Faculty 1998. I really did enjoy this movie when it first came out. It was such an original idea, but still stemmed on the ideas of like the Puppet Masters or Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But I just enjoyed it for the fact that it just incorporated teen angst and all these issues. You got Robert Patrick in there, you got Baby Newirth in it, you got Famke Janssen, who plays a sexpot, which is so funny. Josh Hartnett being the reluctant anarchist kind of guy and stuff like that. And, you know, you got Selma Hayek and, you know, so many other people in there. You know, you had Jon Stewart, Elijah Wood being the typical nerdy kid, which obviously you would think that you would get from this movie. It's that typical Invasion of the Body Snatchers style movie that we needed at that time. Really enjoyed it. Now, mind you, as I watch it now it's 2021 and this came out in 1998? Wow. It is a bit dated based upon the effects and everything, but it still holds true with the terror and the story and everything that's going on within it. The effects don't hold up except for like certain ones where Jordana Brewster, you know, puts the drugs to her nose and then slips with her finger with the little, you know, species style finger to pop off the back and do her thing, which is pretty cool. Plus, I love the fact that they talk about her, you know, she makes a comment and a joke about her Brazilian, you know, ancestry within the movie itself. I thought that was pretty cool. Overall, I enjoyed the film because it has a lot of tension in it. I love the movie because it's really, really cool. And I just enjoyed it overall because it's one of those like midnight drive-in movie kind of movies where you could actually just watch. It's a popcorn style movie and I enjoy it. And I'm curious about what your thoughts are on the podcast. And I'm going to leave it to you guys. I really enjoyed it as a whole, regardless of it being over. Wow. You're talking, this is like 23 years ago now, but I still enjoy it nonetheless. I loved the music within it. It had a great soundtrack. I love The Offspring. I love everybody else that was involved within the soundtrack. And I'm just going to leave it to you guys. Sorry if I said that again. But, you know, I think I really enjoyed this just to go back in time and watch this movie again. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much for your feedback. We always appreciate it. And if anybody wants to leave us feedback, just the same, we are always happy to have it, and you can send it a couple of different ways. You can always hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can send us emails and voicemails at our email, runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter at RFYL Podcasts or Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, tell your friends, share the love. You can send yourself and anybody else to our website, runforyourlivespodcast.com. You can find links to all of our social media, all the podcast players. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, Audible, YouTube, everything. So find all the links there. You go on Apple Podcasts and make sure to give us, a rating, a review, 5 stars.
You know, I was checking out iTunes the other day, and we actually have had a couple of iTunes reviews that have been pretty positive, so it's great. So keep it up, guys. We really appreciate it. It helps folks find us.
Yeah. The more ratings and reviews that we get over there, then the higher we pop up on their charts, and then people can find us by searching different things. So helps us out a lot. And then I'll go ahead and give a couple of shout outs to other stuff that's going on in the podcast universe around us. Of course, Panels to Pixels with Mark and Steve that you heard earlier, still going, and they are still doing their covering like 2 episodes a week, 2 separate episodes. Mark and guests, mainly Ben, I think right now, is covering WandaVision as it's got a few more episodes to go. And then Daphne has been hanging out with Steve on there as well, covering Snowpiercer Season 2. How's that been going?
It has been a lot of fun. I did not ever podcast with Steve that much. I think only in roundtable podcasts. It's really cool to kind of get to podcast with him. It's a different dynamic than what I have here at Run for Your Lives. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
So our good friend Alex has got his newer podcast, got a few episodes out called Field to Screen, where he's been covering different sports movies. And the most recent thing he's got over there is he covered the movie Rounders, also from 1998, which is only in here. So
I know, it's kind of a popular year.
yeah, so make sure if you're a big fan of sports movies, go check him out as well over there, Field to Screen. And that is the Field number 2 screen. And then Daphne, why don't you let everybody know what is going on next right here on Run for Your Lives?
So next up, we are going to be talking about the 2017 American monster film Kong Skull Island. It was directed by Jordan Vogt Roberts, and it stars Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson, and John C. Reilly. There are lots of cool creatures, effects, and monster moments in this reboot of the King Kong franchise that's also part of the Monsterverse.
Yes. Man, it was a lot of fun. When we put that one out next week, you'll hear me say it so many times throughout there probably that I forget how much I love that movie and how good it is until every time I go back to rewatch.
We had so much fun with that, and I had never seen it before, so it was interesting for me because I wasn't as big a fan of Godzilla when we did it, and so I was a little nervous going into King Kong, and you're going to get to hear all about my thoughts and Pake's thoughts when we release that episode next Friday.
Yes, be on the lookout.
With that, we have reached the end of our episode. As always, thanks everyone for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run from alien-infected teachers and their minions, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.